Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for Stage 14 of La Vuelta, what could have been one of the big raid stages, starting in France this morning in Sauveterre de Berne and crossing back into Spain to Lara Belagua, 157 kilometers long, 2 HC climbs, and finishing with a Category 1, 50 Ks of flat pretty much before the first HC climb, the Col Orser, 11.6 Ks, 8%. Descent, bit of a valley. Puerto de la Real, I'm not familiar with the climb. 15 Ks, 8%, but the first 10 Ks are steeper than that. Descent, 3K, 6% kicker. Rolling valley. And then the finish climb's 9.4K, 6%, but it really levels off the last 1,400 meters of 3%. The first 5Ks, 6Ks are much more difficult. They're like 8%, 7%. But it's a raid stage, but it would all be dictated, Benji, by break formation because there's enough of time before the first climb that a decent break can get ahead. And there's also enough valley after the last hard climb that a satellite rider would be really useful.
I agree there. That being said, I never believed in a raid stage going into today's stage as a consequence of yesterday's stage, because when it comes to GC, Jumbo's in that position where they don't need to do it, and Jumbo is strong enough as a team to counter any attempts by UAE to put riders in the breakaway as satellite riders in the first place. So that combination made me not believe in that scenario at all. So I thought it was a breakaway stage. And one of the riders that after yesterday, because let's just talk about it instantly, Remco after yesterday's stage, whatever happened to him, they declared it as, we don't really know what happened to him. That was kind of the quote. So they weren't aware of what the reasoning could be. And therefore, it was possible that today he could be either shit or today he could be actually back in town doing other things. But he's 27 minutes out on GC going into the stage, so it would have to be going for stages. And there's that option of doing KOM jersey cut-up style as well in the process. So that's the thing that he seemed to slip towards because he was one of the most attacking riders at the start of today's stage. I reckon he was kind of doing it like Van der Poel was doing it in the Tour de France, as in force a breakaway with a Movistar rider, 2 up the road, and then see who bridges. That kind of failed, even though the Movistar rider was riding with him in that duo. And then a next group formed with Remco once again involved, and there was this like breakaway formation phase where Remco was in almost every group, and that's the kind of thing where I'm sometimes scared when I see that, because sometimes that means that they'll run out by the time the actual breakaway that goes up the road happens. They might run out by then and not be involved in that, but he was in the eventual breakaway. But before we list all the riders in it, did you notice anything when it comes to other teams trying to slip in? Or
well, Jumbo weren't really trying to get a satellite ahead too aggressively. It did take a while to go, but it's some riders do well with the flat break formation better than others, and Remco is one of those sort of riders who is really, really efficient and aerodynamic on the flat, or riders like Castroviejo, some riders who tried, like Geraint Thomas, they miss it. And normally you'd think, gee, is good on the flat, but some riders you try 3 times and then maybe you do get in, like Kamna sort of riders, but then you're cooked. So it's really difficult. That's why I thought this would be a tug buddy galore, but Remco didn't have one. And a lot of teams were actually, a few of them did have tug buddies. But yeah, it was...
Cattaneo was suddenly also involved, even though he wasn't the instant tug buddy. As in, he slipped in eventually. So he's just not on this list.
We'll get to... I want to sort of keep that in the UAE discussion. Were UAE... I must admit, I had a little siesta. Were UAE in initial break when Remco's jumping, were they trying to get in with anyone?
I didn't really notice them too much during break formation. As in, it looked like they weren't doing a controlling of the breakaway formation. I didn't see many of them trying to slip in breakaways. Maybe 1 or 2 riders might have tried, but I didn't notice it necessarily. So they can't have been active in trying to get in the breakaway. They can't have been active in trying to control the breakaway either. And when this group formed, they also didn't instantly respond by starting to pace behind. And it took a while.
Say you want to do something with Ayuso today.
Yes.
To take real time and put pressure on the last climb, you are not dropping anybody. You're not. The draft is too much. So you have to do it on the second last climb. If you want to do something with Ayuso, you need one of Novak, Almeida, who's on 9 minutes,
Finn,
or Finn Fisher Black in the breakaway. Almeida, you just that just won't happen because
It's on
he
later.
just won't. Yeah, he just won't. So, but Finn Fisher Black and or maybe even Oliveira as a tug buddy for them, you got to get 2 of those 3 in the breakaway. You have to if you want to try anything on that second last climb. And so that's why I didn't really notice them jumping. So when the break did go, I thought, oh, this is it. I thought it was going to get blocked up and it was just going to go, but it didn't. You're right. UAE then, like on Grand Colombier, suddenly the word comes from the team car, oh, we're not in the break.
Yeah,
Start jumping.
Exactly. They started kind of pacing behind. Was it jumping as well? Because I felt like it was mainly
pacing initially, yes.
Pacing initially, they were setting pace at the front of the peloton, and it was the kind of pace where I was like, okay, the gap is kind of existing already. So
it was over a minute.
Yeah. Again. So you're pacing a breakaway that has been established, a 24-rider breakaway with riders like Cataneo, Evenepoel, Castroviejo, Caruso.
No, Cataneo wasn't in there yet.
You're right. Gradek next to Caruso, so tug buddy for Caruso. Juanpe, El Patron, also in there. Like, Store has a teammate in Davi. Kemna's in there. Gebre is in there. Caden Groves is in there, which probably for sprinting points if he could grab some throughout the stage, if that was remotely possible. Van Eetveld, Bissiger with Quinn, Rukosta, Johansson, Petili. So 3 riders from Intermarché willing to get that break rolling as well. Oliveira, Carvalho, Fernandez, Bardet with Dainese, tug buddy. Vauquelin, Le Danois, and Nicolau. Now, that's the list, but before we continue the UAE discussion, if you're one of these riders, are you happy to ride in this breakaway knowing that Remco Evenepoel is in there?
Not really, and none of them really were because no one was pulling. Once it went to a minute, Remco was doing a lot of the pacing himself, even before the Horsair, so he had a target on his back. It doesn't matter that he had a bad day yesterday. People know what he's capable of, on his given day. So, yeah, apart from maybe FDJ with Stora, who think they might have a fighting chance, or Caruso for Bahrain, maybe. Not many people will be, because what else is Gradek going to do but pull, So,
yeah.
Or Clement Davy. But apart from them, a lot of people looking at him, maybe Dainese would pull. But before we get into the thing I want to discuss today is continue this UAE discussion. Our show partner for this episode is Maurten. Once again, they've just brought out the Gel 160, changing the game in sports nutrition. Maurten are famous for their hydrogel technology, which encapsulates the carbohydrate stored within their gels and drink mixes used by Tour de France winners Jumbo-Visma and Team SD Works, as well as a number of other teams in World Tour and Women's World Tour. And if you're going long, take more. And in these sort of mountain stages, the riders now are eating like 120, 130 grams of carbohydrate per hour. It's very different to what was happening maybe 5-7 years ago. And the Gel 160 is for athletes who want more energy in each gel. Still hydrogel technology, but now with 40 grams of carbohydrates in each sachet. So I did some maths. If you have 2 Gel 160s, that's 80 grams of carbs compared to, say, 3 Gel 100s, 75 grams of carbs. That's 1 less gel an hour. So you don't have to take your hands off the bars if you're going long or doing descents like these guys are doing, which last longer than 15 minutes. Anyway, if you want to try out Gel 160 for your longer endurance sessions or where fueling opportunities are less frequent, you can get a 20% discount on Maurten.com for LRCP listeners using the code Lanterne Rouge 14. That's capital LANTERNEROUGE 14, Lanterne Rouge 14 for stage 14 today for 72 hours in US, UK, most of Europe, and should be in the France and Spain as well. So thanks to Maurten for supporting the show, and go and check out the Gel 160, really redefining sports nutrition. Okay, Benji.
So UAE discussion. Little recap. Established breakaway. UAE starts pacing behind that breakaway. The gap is over a minute. Why are they doing that so late without a rider in the breakaway? That's because they probably realize, okay, we still want to do something with the stage, but you're doing that without the setup for it. As in, you miss half your setup. You don't have your satellite rider for after the Port Laro climb, which is second last climb. And you need that because there's a major valley after that. You mentioned that already. So that's there. And it's like they realize that after a bit because the gap is going up. The gap is going up to like 4 minutes and so forth. And at that point, they kind of stop for a second. I swear there was like a pause for a minute until we had UAE and Jumbo both pacing.
Well, no, but before in the valley, they were pacing and then they started jumping.
Yeah.
And so they held it at 1 minute, 1:10. Remco's pacing up front. Then they start jumping with Rui Oliveira jumps with Cataneo. Good move from Cataneo because he's a good climber. But I'm like, Rui Oliveira is going to have to close 1:30 on the flat. Well, no, he won't be able to do it on the flat because the climb will start soon, which is 11 Ks, 8.5%. And he has to close 1 minute to Remco Bardet Stora on that climb to do what? He's not going to even get there. And even if he does, he'll get dropped. He ain't making it over Eroy Mendy. The second climb after this, it made no sense. And it's not like he was bringing... And then behind him, in a chasse patate, is Finn Fisher-Black on the flat. The good climber who could close that gap. And it was literally... This was some of the worst break formation tactics I have seen. And the Grand Colombier wasn't great. This was significantly worse. Because Grand Colombier, okay, the break's gone. They still...
Yeah.
They still got to work and managed it. They did a good job.
Yeah.
Despite this made no sense. I couldn't tell whether they were trying to bridge Almeida on the climb, going for the Ayuso stage win, trying to get Fisher-Black in the breakaway. None of it was cohesive for anything. And you have two guys chasse-patating. You now have one domestique left in the group, Novak, because Oliveira, Finn Fisher-Black are ahead. Almeida won't domestique. Soler won't domestique for Ayuso. And also, when that break's gone, you're not getting a Salat rider. It's done. You're not getting one. It's too late. Forget about it. And so maybe then you can use the other guys to pace Eroy Mendy super hard. I don't know, but it was a disaster.
That's the thing that makes it worse than Colombier, because in Colombier at the start of this stage, the breakaway formation does not go their way in the sense of their goal that they have for the stage. But the issue here is that they kind of double down. They double down. It's like a fallacy. What do you call it? A fallacy. That's a word.
Sunk cost
fallacy. Where they keep on investing in something that's already lost to the point that it has more damage in the long run. And it just made no sense what they were doing. That being said, some people were actually able to bridge towards the front of the race, which was Cataneo. Like Oliveira didn't, Finn Fisher-Black didn't, and they were back in the peloton. And so basically at this point, after the UAE drama before the Col Serre, the first proper climb of the stage, we now have a domestique for Remco in the front. As in, Cataneo made it to the front, which is very valuable actually. Because he can now be the tug buddy, not only on the flat, but also on the first climb for Remco, so that he doesn't have to do everything alone, because people are looking at him, because he's the, on paper, strongest rider in the breakaway for this stage. Like, Bardet's got a palmarès and so forth in breakaways as well, but he's not the current reputation of Remco Evenepoel in breakaways. And Cataneo is just pacing right there. And in the peloton behind, that's what I alluded to earlier. You've got UAE back to pacing, combined with Jumbo kind of moving in a few times and then also helping a bit later. So it's like Jumbo Scar probably realized, oh, UAE's like trying to go for the stage win or something. So if we help, we might actually get the stage win for Roglic at the end of the stage, because Remco's in the breakaway, so he can't outsprint Roglic. If the breakaway gets caught and Ayuso, Roglic is going to outsprint Ayuso, or do you see something different in Jumbo helping the pace?
I don't think Jumbo was setting a pace with Tratnik to let the break win. So on that climb, Tratnik was maybe going the same speed as the break, maybe even losing to Cataneo, because the use for Cataneo on Horser is no one is helping Remco. Everyone already knows how strong Remco is because he's shown them already on the climb, sort of half attacking them unintentionally. And so Cataneo's needed to set that pace at 4 minutes. Tratnik was... And then Novak comes to the front. So Domen Novak comes to the front. He starts pacing really, really hard. And he paces much quicker than Tratnik. And then the Van Baarle thing I don't understand. I think that might have been a pissing contest. Because he basically came to the front, paced in front of your man, what's his name? Novak. And then for 30 seconds and then stopped.
Yeah.
But This is why I'm also confused with UAE. Almeida's at the back. You're not going to make Soler pace. You're not going to make Ayuso might attack. You have no satellite rider. Fisher Black is just battling, I think, at this point. You have 80 Ks to go on this climb. 90 Ks to go on this climb. Are you going to close down the breakaway with Domen Novak for 2.5 hours? No. Are you going to set a hard enough pace with Domen Novak where he has to pace 2 HC climbs in a row to put any GC rider under pressure? Absolutely not. And you have no satellite rider. It made no sense to me.
If you're, let's say you're UAE and you do want to do something on the stage, if you had the break established and you're not in it, stop whatever you're doing. Don't try to reach to the breakaway, get to the next couple of climbs, and maybe pace it.
I think Rui trying to get Finn in the break is fine if you're going for a stage win. Not great, but fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But I believe if your goal is to set up an attack from Ayuso even without a satellite rider, then I understand that you can pace with Novak on the climb, or you can make it hard with Fisher Black than on the actual Port La Roe climb. But then you don't need to do all the stuff on the flat anymore with Oliveira, with Finn Fisher Black. They need to keep your eggs for the actual climb to make the climb hard so that Ayuso can do something there and maybe create the separation you need. Because that's kind of your goal there. Because Ayuso is probably just trying to pick off one Jumbo rider. Every Jumbo rider that he can pick out that might have a weakness on any day is maybe a step to the podium for him. So that's how I see his tactics, but it was just a bit too much, a bit doubling down, and it wasn't very good in total, I guess.
Well, and because Almeida, by the way, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, he said yesterday, I'll help one. Didn't see that today. He's just sort of doing his own thing, and maybe that's team orders to protect their own GC position. Maybe it's that, I don't know. But you cannot, with no satellite rider, you have a 1 hour valley. Say you do, like best case, Roglic is not good, and off Finn's pace on Puerto Lorao, you put a minute into Roglic with Ayuso. He's going to have two of the other Jumbos in his wheel. You have to do that descent, that whole valley, on your own, whilst Roglic gets paced back by Volta, or Kelderman, or Geesink. It's just... And I don't want to be too critical of people trying to knock Jumbo off. I'm just saying there was a way today, this stage, but it doesn't. That's the way it would have been. Yeah, as you said, you just let the break go. Hopefully, you have someone in it. If you don't, too bad. Then you got to use the whole team, the whole team, including Almeida, maybe even including Soler, have to smash the Puerto Lorao because you are not going to drop these guys or put them under pressure. And I'm even talking about David de la Cruz here. You're not going to drop them off Novak pacing for an hour and a half. So that was a long rant.
But to round it up, I do like that Ayuso is trying, even though
for sure,
I don't mind him going for an attack on Laro even without a satellite rider up there, because the last climb is relatively okay. Yeah, he will have to survive a valley, but imagine, for example, if Remco's like 3 minutes ahead, which he wasn't anymore on the second last climb. If he's 3 minutes ahead, that's kind of a useful rider to have ahead of you as well, because if you can catch him, that you'll have a rider riding with you towards the finish line. So that's also like an indirect satellite rider on a different team, but that wouldn't come into play today anyway because the gap became too large. And talking about the gap becoming too large, the breakaway gets to the top of Col Urser, and we get a bit of a sprint between Remco and between Bardet. And those two are basically fighting for the KOM points. So not only does Remco want the stage, he also wants KOM after already being active in the early breakaway formation phase. And he beats Bardet relatively easy. Store is gapped on that sense. And Bardet, he sees a descent. He's like, I like that. And he just keeps on going. He keeps on going with Remco. They both keep on going. And the gap is actually pretty huge. As in, I reckon the gap was 45 seconds, 2 kilometers into the descent, because Store was alone behind them, and then the Grupo was behind them. So there was like a solo chaser at that point, with the group not having the tempo to keep up with these guys. So the gap got bigger while UAE is spacing in the back still, and we're moving towards the Puerto de la Roe, and I don't want to... Let's not mingle any more words about it. We still have Remco and Bardet ahead. The gap to the peloton is now 5:30. The gap from Remco and Bardet to Storr is now 1:48. And then Remco once again takes KOM points. And that's when the peloton has the actual action from UAE that they might have been trying to set up for, but didn't have the setup for, right?
Yeah, Novak is overtaken by Finn Fisher-Black. He's pacing, but we see Almeida and Soler actually going to the back, and Finn Fisher-Black's pacing actually drops Soler and Almeida. And so, it wasn't looking good, but Ayuso, he's just trying to attack one of the Jumbos and maybe get Mas or someone to work with him. He attacks on Puerto Laurel. Jumbos are in his wheel, and sort of that. Did De La Cruz throw in a dig afterwards or not?
I don't remember, actually.
I feel like De La Cruz threw in a little dig. Maybe I'm making it up.
He definitely did it on the last climb.
I think he did before as well. But anyway, he tries something. He gets brought back because he's a top 10 threat. But when Ayuso attacked, it wasn't 4 guys left, 5 guys left.
Yeah.
It was like group of what?
12?
Like Vlasov, Outerbrooks, and although Vlasov was looking a little bit shaky, I think.
And he put Soler in trouble, basically, yeah?
And Bahrain see that. And that, I think, influences Bahrain later because Soler is just ahead of Landa on GC, and they see Soler sliding on the Puerto de Laurel. But yeah, there's not much Ayuso can do. No satellite rider. Jumbo's in his wheel. Where's he going to go? He stops. Volta comes back. Hessing comes back. Hessing starts pacing. You can pretty much forget the GC group. And so we're on to Remco versus Bardet, and that gap just keeps expanding now with Jumbo put Volta and Hessing on the front. It goes out to 8 minutes. Remco's doing the majority of the work, even though Storr has kind of been caught by Castro and Van Eyfelt behind. But I think Remco really, like the Belgian champs and other races, he knows that on the flat, he can also hurt people by keeping a really heavy, fast tempo. Because with the gap at 8 minutes, he doesn't care about GC anymore. With the gap at 8 minutes, he doesn't need to keep riding hard. He can, but I think he knows he can hurt someone like Bardet a lot on this rolling terrain, and I think he really did. And they get to the final climb. Remco, what percentage chance do you think Remco had it in the bag when they started the 9K final?
Oh, I had zero doubts that Remco was going to win this stage already from beforehand. Even though, like, Bardet's a good rider, eh? But when Remco's on, he's on, and Bardet should not be beating him. And he looked on throughout the whole stage. Didn't have the weakness that he had on Obisque already at this stage, so looked like he was going to be better on today's stage. And Bardet taking over in the valley before we get to that final climb, did that surprise you? I feel like it was kind of the thing of like, please don't attack me.
I think he didn't want to do the valley on his own, and he knew if he sort of mucked around too much, Remco would just hit him and he would never see him again. It would if Remco got a gap on Bardet on the flat of even 10 meters, it would be over. So yeah, I think he had to just offer a few pulls here and there, but they get to the final climb, Remco pacing, and he eventually just on the 8% section drops Bardet off the wheel when he was pacing, because Remco would have been happy to go to a sprint as well.
Yep.
It was Bardet that needed to do anything, but he got dropped off the wheel. Remco goes clear. Bardet cracks completely. And I think that pacing in the valley from Remco and hard all day actually was what caused that. And Remco goes clear. He knows he's going to win. He's got Bardet on a minute. He gets on the radio with like 500 meters to go, talking to the team. He's crying over the finish line. And just a really emotional victory, his second one in this year's Vuelta. And what a highs and lows in the last 24 hours, Benji. From he said yesterday he cried all night after collapsing and falling out of GC, going from 3rd to 19th, and today he wins the stage with what, 100 and it was effectively 150k solo because no one really helped him apart from Cataneo on the first climb.
Exactly. Props to Cataneo though, because I do think that helped a lot in making sure that UAE couldn't like make a serious dent into the gap, because it went down to 3 minutes for a bit on that Ursair climb. But Cataneo, good job on bridging, good job in the work there. It's also pretty clever of Cataneo that he realized, okay, I can jump with Oliveira and see if I can get to the front to help out Remco. Because some other teams might just be like, okay, Remco's up front, hands behind their backs, just wait until tomorrow, he's got it, stuff like that. But that's props to Cataneo. But Remco-wise, like, it makes you think, because, like, he's such an attacking rider through his history. As in, if we look at the one-day races he does, his OG MO that he had back in the day, the long attacks, the one that he did in Polonia, for example, where he dropped Carapaz, I think Eddie Dunbar as well in that in that Polonia, and that specific Polonia on that hilly parkour and so forth. Like those actions, I love that. I love watching a rider that attacks with 70k to go and puts the entire race upside down, stuff like that. A lot more than I prefer like a lost climb that has a bit of a sprint at the end on Iron Cell, for example. So I prefer those crazy stages, and it makes you wonder whether has he sometimes turned very passive when it comes to GC and left something that worked in the past to the side for the sake of being scared that it wouldn't work against GC riders. Does that question make sense?
Like a long shot, you mean the long, like what he did in Polonia back in the day?
Yeah, like that crazy shit. It's risky, but it kind of worked back in the day.
I guess against, like, if Koos was leading GC, Jumbo didn't exist, and Koos was on, I don't know, Movistar or something, or even not, they're not a good example because they've got strong rouleurs. Yeah, then it would work, but it's tough against strong teams. I don't know. He was certainly, like, today, incredibly strong and way better than yesterday. You know, you say, oh, well, he won sort of uncontested. The GC group did chase. They chased on the first 2 HC climbs and in the valley before Horser. It wasn't like they gave up, of course, after Puerto del Real, but he was still way ahead on Puerto del Real. Like, he must have been incredibly strong today.
And then the obvious question that is going to come up is, yesterday he had that bad day. I reckon during the stage, let's say the first 4 minutes, he was dangling at the back hoping he could survive the stage. Then between like the 4 and 7 minute gap, I reckon he was like, yeah, what is the point of me just keeping up trying to even remotely survive this stage? And then the gap evaporated in the last like 40% of the stage from 7 minutes to 27 minutes. Like that gap was Tourmalet. And
yeah,
I reckon the majority of those last 20 minutes that he loses is him just thinking, okay, there's no point in me even trying anymore, just ride to the finish line and try to reset tonight, stuff like that. So like there were a lot of times like he loses 27 minutes, pure capitulation, 100%. Like he capitulated and lost 6 minutes relatively quickly. But it's not like he lost 27 minutes by capitulating. I think that half of that is from like, yeah, fuck this. Like there's no point in me keeping this up. You get what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's what I agree. Like, could he have finished with Almeida yesterday?
Probably not, but I reckon on like 10, 11 minutes he could have.
And then if he's on, say he's on 9 minutes on GC, is he allowed in the break today?
It's
maybe
close,
not.
It's still an Emco, eh?
Because and it's also annoying. It's annoying because you have to then control it at 3-4 minutes all day. It's just irritating. Not that you go into red, but you just can't let the gap really go out. So, I don't know. But they'll have to figure out what happened yesterday because it is very strange to be so good today and good in other stages. And then, like, first climb of the day yesterday, dropping from a group of 60. What happened? Was it bad rest day fueling? Was it... I don't know.
To give you credit, though, the day before yesterday, you texted me and basically told me that, yeah, I kind of feel like Remco might have at some point in this Vuelta a bit of a Carpena moment. Like, where do you believe that came from? Was that
the TT,
him not being consistent? Or the TT, yeah?
Havalambre and the TT. They weren't as good as last year in the Vuelta week 1. He smoked everybody, and the Watts were so good. Pico Hanno, Banquaya, Les Preres, untouchable. Ayuso was good in the Vuelta last year, and on Les Preres, Remco absolutely smoked him. And Havalambre is a 30-minute climb, quite steep. He got dropped by Roglic and Vingegaard, lost 30 seconds and got dropped 23 to Ayuso. And so I just didn't think he was as good as last year for whatever reason, whether that's a different preparation. This wasn't his A goal this year. His A goal was Giro and World's TT, and he kind of just did the Vuelta.
Yeah.
He did do an altitude camp, but it wasn't like last year. And so when I saw he was not so superior in week 1, I thought there's going to be big problems in week 2 and 3.
Like, going into this Vuelta, I feel like we both weren't very confident in Remco winning this race. We didn't put him
on the podium, no?
I think I put him on the podium, but I specifically said that I only believe he had like 5% or something chance to win the race. And I kind of don't know where that came from. I felt like for me, it was more that he focused on the ITT and might not have been in the best physiology to start the Vuelta in terms of, I don't know, preparation in that sense. That kind of was my reason, but I don't have like a specific reason outside of that. But I agree that when it comes to the time trial, that was not the most impressive time trial he's ever ridden. The inconsistency during the first 10 days, probably not great. He crashed and like...
He did crash, true.
Like, that can have consequences, and he hit his head there, which I still wonder if they did a concussion test that evening, because I reckon if they did that evening, that...
He just had a hectic first 3 days. I just thought it's just a lot. It's just a lot. It's just
so
a lot
much
going
pressure.
on.
I'd go down the pressure hole, but because of that, I wouldn't be able to handle that first week.
Yeah, probably. That's why we just do podcasts and we sit here and criticize people. But yeah, I don't know. I do know. There was all those things, and I thought, but he's won. He won a mountaintop finish against those guys on stage 3, and now he's won this stage, and now he's also in the KOM jersey with a decent lead.
Now he's got us.
He can, and he's probably a lock to win another stage if he has these legs. So
4, he's going to win in total.
You reckon
so
4?
2 more.
Yeah. So it's good that he felt, he was really like emotional at the finish. So I think it's good, and also mental toughness today to come back and really strike back and show a bounce back today. I think is really, really good to finish a Grand Tour when you're out of it and keep fighting. I think doing the 3 weeks will do him good. So happy to see him win today. In the GC group, Bahrain came to the front on this little 3K kicker trying to distance Soler. They didn't. And then I thought they were going to try drop Soler on the final climb. They paced with pulls. Buitrago got dropped. Soler was dangling. Landa didn't attack. And the GC group all finishes together. So Remco, I thought Ayuso looked pretty suspect, actually. But the climb was just not hard enough for anybody to do anything.
I don't know. I didn't really notice the suspect necessarily. But in general, I feel like it was just a ride into the finish line from the peloton group. And yeah, there was a bit of a sprint by Vlasov, for example, if I recall that.
Chasing De La Cruz, the GOAT.
You're right. DLX was up there. You're right. But I do have criticism for Remco. I think he made a mistake in the stage, something that he should never do when he's in a cycling race, and that's drinking from a bottle that he gets from a spectator.
This has been so over. What?
Sorry, but that is dangerous.
The guy's not pissed in the bottle. What do you mean? It's just a random dude with some water.
Jumbo might have poisoned it. You never know.
Bro.
Like it did with Jan Geert. Yeah. No, that was UAE. No, who poisoned Jan Geert again? In UAE tour?
No, he got food poisoning. He was going to drop everyone and Jebel Hafid after Jebel Duais he was cooking.
Yeah.
No. I mean, why would Jumbo do it for this stage?
No, obviously
it must have been the one he had the day before. He lost 27 minutes.
I think it's not clever to drink from water you get from spectators. Like, there's so much talk about like doping tests and so forth, doping positives. Like, I would never do that if I was a cyclist. I wouldn't trust anything.
So the guy's holding up a plastic water bottle, just a random French dude, giving it to Bardet. Gave it to Bardet first, by the way. Doesn't know which rider's taking it.
Yeah.
He just wants to make any rider piss hot, and so he puts something in the water. I mean, come on.
The theory doesn't make sense, but I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think more likely the bigger problem is germs. You just shouldn't be drinking. This random dude could have COVID or a flu, and he's been drinking out of it himself. Bear in mind, the bottle wasn't full. He didn't just unscrew it. He's been probably drinking out of it. Yeah, so that's the bigger problem is germs, I think.
And also, like, the people give these water bottles to throw over your head, if I recall. Usually.
Yeah. And that's what Bardet didn't. Bardet didn't drink out of it, and he poured it on Remco, and then Remco's like, "Nah, give it to me," and drank out of it.
The difference between an MPCC team and not. They get the rules of not drinking from spectator bottles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a bit of a mountain out of a molehill, but so hopefully he's okay.
Yeah.
And your man wasn't. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
We got Almeida who said yesterday, yeah, I kind of have the flu, but I'll just keep riding, just sit in a bunch. Jesus, okay.
I did like his speech afterwards, badass words like that he said yesterday, but you gotta question it a bit. As in, these are the stages that make your character or define you? Define you.
These are the
That was
stages that
word.
can give you a serious health problem. So they can define you and your
They
career.
can define you. They will never define you in terms of towards spectators, I reckon. Even though, if you think about it, the dude was doing a 100-kilometer solo yesterday.
That's why it makes no sense to me, though. Right? It makes no sense to me. So he can ride solo for 100 Ks in the most intensive mountain stage with that much climbing per kilometer and catch and pass guys that were in Group 1 whilst it was going completely apeshit and Jumbo-Visma hard-paced the whole stage all the way to the line. And he only loses that much time. And on Orbisk, he cannot raise his power enough to stay with a group of 60. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
The only thing that makes sense to me, I think there's something that makes sense, is that you have a bad moment on Orbisk and you recover throughout the stage. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Because he must have, like, his power curve is improving during the stage.
Mate,
and this is what also doesn't make sense. No, because I've spoken to other riders. I've had enough of that Almeida stuff. I've had enough. It is not efficient. On Laporte in Catalunya, because I always gave him too much credit, and I thought.
But he punctured there, no?
In Catalunya.
Well, which climb was where he punctured at the bottom?
Don't know. Not going to let it ruin my narrative. Yeah, well, I don't think it was Laporte. I used to think he was being really smart and riding set power. But what is actually happening is he's negative splitting a lot of these climbs because he is dropping on Laporte and then closing on Remco going crazy. He must be going faster than he did at the start. It makes no sense. And he's and on Coy, I've just...
Okay, he punctured on Laporte.
He punched on Laporte.
Yeah. At the bottom, and then he had to like do the Almeida forcefully.
All right, I have to pick another
point still
climb.
Stands. There's other climbs where he did that.
Anyway. At least he continued. He maintained his GC position today. So GC, there is a change actually. David de la Cruz moves ahead of Steph Kras, who lost a minute today. He struggled. So de la Cruz, he is hunting that top 10. But yeah, no change in those top 9. Anyway, anything else from today's stage? We learn anything, Benji?
Not much necessarily. Just that we've got a bit of was it Adam Yates that did this in the past? A Carapaz in the Vuelta as well in the past. We've got that type of rider in Evenepoel now, and all the break riders that were... It was Simon Yates, my bad. All the break riders that were interested in getting in the breakaway and winning a stage are now very fearfully looking at Evenepoel every single time the breakaway formation starts. And if Evenepoel is in the break with Catareo at any point, if they have their tug buddy there, then he's likely to win the stage at the end of the day if that breakaway establishes. So other breakaway teams will have to find a way to get in breakaways that are not Evenepoel. And the only way to do that is just not work with him at all and hope that that break gets caught and try again, right?
Pretty much. He's like, on his day, the strongest rider in the race just about. So it's like, would you get in the break with Vingegaard on a mountain stage? Probably not. It wouldn't be a good idea.
If Remco does this twice more, he's back in the top 7.
I think teams like Bora will chase if he does that. Yeah. They won't let him back and that close.
Top 10 is possible, though, I reckon. Like, that's going to be close. 11th or 12th or 13th.
He already won this race. Better to go for more stages, I think. Tomorrow's stage, from Pamplona to Leckenberry. I want to say Soler won this stage before. I've said it already multiple times. 2020. He fucking did. I am actually on one, but it was a different climb. He won the Pamplona to Leckenberry stage in the Vuelta 2020 when he attacked on the final climb and descent victory when he was on Movistar. But this is actually different. They don't do as hard a climb. They do 2 repetitions of Puerto de Zaurate, 6Ks, 5.1%. Last one crest, 9Ks from the finish. There's medium mountains in the first 80Ks of the stage. Too hard, I think, for Alpecin, even though Groves is really good and quite resistant. I think this is it is a very steady climb. No, I think it's too hard. Alpecin, and I don't think Alpecin have the team. I don't think they can do it. And I think other teams will be kicking off to get in the break. So
don't you dare steal my pick. I'll let you pick first, but don't you dare steal my pick.
I'm trying to think who would be your pick.
There's two names that shout in my head for this one with climbs like this.
Alexia Arambaru, but he's in Canada.
No. Lascano.
Okay, you can have him. I'm
Ghana.
going to go. Ghana is a good one. I don't know how tight he is. Castro is good, but struggles to win because he doesn't have a sprint. Where's Luke's boy, Felix Engelhardt? This is a good one for him.
Yeah.
Actually. Also, Brero has a decent sprint on him. I'm going to go Sean Quinn. Sean Quinn from EF. I think he and Piccolo need to get in the breakaway, and I think Quinn is very, very good for this sort of finish. Also, Gregoire, of course, can win, but I don't know. I seem like the FDJ youngsters are getting a little bit tired now, which no surprise. Into the end of the second week. For Quickstep, Remco, of course, I think will be stage favourite. I don't see why Remco can't win this stage. And maybe Novak. But yeah, I think it's going to be a breakaway. Igita, where he needs to get in, or Kamna. Kamna's won stages like this before, ahead of Carapaz. So yeah, I'm going to go, who did I pick? Quinn.
Quinn, yes.
Team America's having a great Vuelta so far.
Ghana outsprints Remco and Lascano at the finish line.
Ooh, that would be a nice finish, actually.
It actually would. A millimeter sprint, that's what I want to see. For sure.
That's the best stage they could have had, to be honest. But anyway, does Roglic no risk, no glory? I think it's too shallow.
Nah. Like, they don't need to do that on a stage like this. They can just wait for the next opportunistic mountain stage. They can even go on like the stage afterwards, the base climb. That, I reckon, it's short, 120 kilometers, and has like this one climb at the end that is roughly 5 kilometers. It's steep. Like, that's the kind of thing where I expect him, Roglic, to take time on some in the GC group, even if a break wins, even though it's short, so it might actually be controlled by Jumbo.
Are Jumbo happy with the gap to Ayuso?
I would never be happy with a gap, but they're happier than if it was smaller, so they will try and extend it a bit on stages where opportunities arise. But on the other ends, I also feel like they feel relatively safe with 3 riders ahead of him.
Because, like, say Koos has a major problem, crash or gets tired, and then Ayuso is just better than Roglic and Vingegaard on Angleroo, where team tactics can't really help you. He's only a minute behind Roglic. Can really bring himself back into the race. I think if he's still behind by Cruz de Linares on stage 18, there's not much he can do, to be honest, especially when Almeida and Soler are not going to pace. They're going to protect their own GC position. And so can Finfisher Black put Jumbo's leaders on threshold for Ayuso to attack? On the evidence of today, the answer is no. So, but yeah, I don't think we'll see anything tomorrow. Maybe on that climb, they'll try taking another 10, 15 seconds on stage 16.
But we got to say that when it comes to Angliru, I also don't feel like you're going to lose a minute there if you do have a bad day. As in, Roglic lost 26 seconds there, even though he had Kuss, but even if he didn't have Kuss, I expect he wouldn't lose more than 40 seconds there necessarily. So I reckon that Ayuso needs more than Angliru to be able to upset this race at the moment.
I think so, yeah. 13K is 9.5%, with the last 6Ks at like 13%. But who's going to pace for him? So, and I think Kuss is pretty, and Vionas are pretty well suited to it. Anyway, that was our pod today, our recap. We've got the Montreal Classic tomorrow evening as well as this, what we think is a sort of puncher transitional medium mountain stage, finishing in Lekenberry. But it starts in Movistar's headquarters in Pamplona. Expect to see Lascano in the breakaway, perhaps winning. Benji will be happy. And we'll see you with the recap tomorrow. Ciao.